Hello, welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, here with my mentor and dear friend, Jyoti Wind. Jyoti, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Lauren.
Jyoti, why don't you open up this space for us today?
Okay, thank you. Grandmothers and grandfathers, spirits of the East, we call to you. We ask for your insights this day. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the South, remind us of our passion for life, to live it. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the West, we call to you. Healing spirits of the West, remind us of what is ours to receive so that we can take it in. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the North, wisdom keepers of the North, we ask for your wise counsel and to see what we look upon. Grandfather Sky, keeper of the starry night, we ask for your blanket of protection this day. Grandmother Earth, you whose cells we occupy, remind us of our mercy and compassion. And to that wise being that lives inside our heart and counsels us, may that being be present as well. So I have a portion of a poem by Mary Oliver, When Death Comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness?
Thank you, Jyoti. So, Jyoti, I know we have an interesting topic to discuss today, and I'd love to open it up with this question. What is a good death?
I think a good death is, besides it being a good question, I think it's a certain consciousness about letting go, a certain gracefulness about letting go of what we've held to us as our identity, as our life, as our as our role, our identity of the roles we've played. And I think that as we let go and relinquish, kind of surrender to the inevitable, and not fight it or not think that we are in a place we shouldn't be. I think that that is the best we can do. You know, like Geronimo said, you know, today's a good day to die. And I think that he meant, he could have meant many things. My interpretation of what he meant was that he was ready, that he had made peace with himself and his life. He had made peace with his creator, let's say. He was willing to let go of his role as a chief, as a leader of people, as a father, as a husband, all the roles he had played in his life, that he was ready to let go of that and meet his end in his strength.
How do you think we make peace with our life?
I think that, you know, it's like making peace with anything. You know, maybe we have some argument with someone. Maybe we have some discord with somebody. Maybe we just don't like someone. Um, these are all parts of life. And so, how do we make peace with those things? We might meditate on it. We might not look at it for years, and then all of a sudden something comes around. Maybe we're in a vulnerable moment in our own lives, and we may see things from a different point of view, and it gives us a moment in time to let something go. And I think dying is the major letting go of a person's life. And so, just, as you get older, little by little, you may find yourself just letting go of things that no longer matter, things that at one point were supreme in your consciousness. And then little by little, the angers or the petty differences, or we just learn to, or just the natural process of aging can take us into that letting go. Those things don't matter so much anymore. And so we may find ourselves in that process of letting go, being easier with what we're letting go of. I mean, let's say you're a woman, and let's say you're a mother, and let's say you become a grandmother, and let's say you might even become a great grandmother, and it's almost like you're distancing yourself from the roles of nurturing, prime nurturer, from that child to that grandparent. Somebody else is raising that child, your son or daughter, and then great grandmother, you're removed another layer. And so the natural process of life, uh, you're a senior vice president of a company, all of a sudden you're getting older, you retire, you're now seeing yourself as a fisherman, or you're now seeing yourself as a golfer. You're taking yourself away from those primary identifications. And so the natural process, I think, can take you through a change in consciousness, a shift, a wanting to know, well, where am I going? Where am I heading? What am I letting go of? What was this life really about for me? And so if you maintain an attention to yourself and an attention to your life, I think a natural process will take you to looking at, who am I and where am I going?
I like that you say it's a natural process, because so often we get stuck in this loop that we have to work on things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so have you found this to be a natural process in your own life?
Absolutely. I was quite surprised sometimes when I caught myself in certain situations and realized, oh, I don't have that same reaction anymore, or that same response. I don't really care about that so much anymore. I don't care how it turns out. It's not for me to fix. It's not for me to rescue. It's not for me to pull it out of the fire. It's like I can just let it be whatever it's going to be. It's not necessarily my job. It's not my job anymore.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, Jyoti, is this process of really getting closer to who we are, our essence, the older we become. Does that sound like what you're trying to say here?
Yes, yes. I think that with an attention, with a deliberate conscious awareness, or paying a deliberate desire to pay attention, that we get to see ourselves more in our truth and our authenticity. The layers that we've taken on, the roles that we've taken on to live this life, they fall away. We're not who we were. We're more like who we were when we came in. I mean, being born and coming here, and then dying and leaving here, It's very similar. As we're born here, we're dying in a sense to wherever we were. And as we're dying here, we're being born into wherever we're going in a sense, maybe not in a baby form, but in consciousness, we're leaving this and I think, and continuing on into a level of consciousness. I think how we die also means a certain level of vibrational match of what we experience. From my metaphysical training, I mean, I haven't died myself and come back here to talk about it in this life, but from my metaphysical training, I think that what we think death is what we experience until we wake up. So my father had a fear of death and couldn't talk about it, would get up from the dinner table if death was brought up. And he felt like when you died, you went to sleep. You just went to sleep. We never got further in that conversation to see what he thought, well, do you wake up? So I felt when my father passed, when he died, that he went to sleep. He went to sleep for a while because that's what he thought was true. And then at some point, I would imagine his spirit woke up and he continued on, reincarnated, moved on away from the earth plane. I have no idea what his soul agenda was.
Jyoti, I'd love to play with this concept a little bit. So, if I understand you right, you believe from your metaphysical training that what we believe happens at death is what actually happens first.
I think in a certain consciousness. I think
Yes.
that if we think we go to sleep, then we go to sleep. The spirit kind of recesses itself and just proves to that person like life proves to us.
Sure.
If we think life is a bear, then we keep meeting a bear on our path.
Right.
So I think our belief system sets us up for whatever happens next until that illusion is burst and who we really are, our authentic spirit, our sense of soul comes in and says, okay, let's have a rest period. Maybe you go back, maybe you go on somewhere else. Let's see what's next.
So to take this a step further, if I believe I'm going to be met by St. Peter at the gates of heaven and be judged for my life, would you say that that's what I might
Yeah.
manifest?
Yes.
Which is really what we're doing. We're manifesting the experience for ourselves.
Absolutely, just like we're doing here.
Why would it be different, right?
Why would it be different? Exactly. But it maybe is a different level of consciousness, but it's like we live out what we think it's going to be. And so in that space or span of time, where time is really irrelevant, there's a sense of living out and proving to ourselves that this is how it is.
So
So
Jyoti, go ahead.
I have another story. No, I
Yeah,
have another
sure.
story. I knew this man whose father had died, and it was 30 years later that he had this dream and saw his father, and for some reason his father had a very large head, and this friend of mine knew that his father had just woken up from when he had died. And this is 30 years of earth time later, but we don't know what that felt like for his dad, but that he had just woken up from whatever he thought was going to happen after he died. So to have a good death, one might want to think about, meditate over, consider what a good death would be for them, so that they stepped from one plane of consciousness into another, and just kind of ease themselves into something that they're open to the truth of it, and that, like we could say, learning through kindness, that they step into a space where they can learn what the next phase is about, asking to learn through kindness or gentle guidance, that kind of thing.
I love this. And of course, my curiosity is, opening up. It's one of those moments where I feel like my brain is exploding. So of course, what you're saying is, we create our reality here. We can all, I think those that listen to us also would agree. And so, of course, we would create our reality in the next world. So if I were to believe it was painful and suffering, just like many people do as they approach old age. They think old age is going to be lonely or painful, or name a number of things, and it therefore becomes that for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you say is start now considering what you would like that next phase
Experience
of
to be.
consciousness to be.
Yes, yes. So, I remember having this conversation with this person and about death. And because I had a dream about death showing up in a certain way. And kind of a la Carlos Castaneda, death sits at your left shoulder. And I had a conversation with this guy, and he was of Aztec, Native American, Spanish descent. And he said, we don't see death that way. We don't see death the way you Americans see it, as the Grim Reaper. And, we see it that the handmaiden of death comes and she gently births you into this new phase of consciousness and awareness. It's female. The spirit is female, and she's the handmaiden of death, and she comes to usher you out and leave a body that's sick, ill, decaying, or just used up, and into a new state of consciousness. It's very gentle, it's very kindly. It's like a midwife coming to help you birth yourself into this next phase.
What a beautiful image.
Yeah.
Love this. So, Jyoti, what are you manifesting for yourself?
That's a good question. For myself, I would like to die consciously. Like, it's always neat to think about just dying in your sleep,
Sure.
but I think I would like to be more conscious than that, so that I can make choices as things come to me, as I'm maybe going through what they call the bardo, and meeting different spirits, different kinds of situations, with more awareness and consciousness. I mean, that's just an idea that I have and kind of cultivate. I I envision, from this friend's ideas, as death as a midwife, a female that stands at my left shoulder. I've done journeys with her. I've had conversations with her, and it feels like a very kindly, supportive, and gentle presence. And so that's the being that I would like, among maybe several others, to help me through that transition of awareness and consciousness.
Hmm. Hmm.
We can, I think, hold those thoughts and those awarenesses, and sometimes the soul has something else in mind. and we're in a car accident and boom, you're out of your body and you realize your body has died. You can't get back in, and it's time to just move on. And I think that as soon as we die, we are given an opportunity to go and forgive and ask forgiveness of those that maybe were felt slighted, or maybe who we slighted or did not treat well. We can go and ask forgiveness in spirit form, and we can go and forgive those we felt maybe had done something to us, as part of our letting go of this, having lived that life.
Yeah. I think it would be a whole topic on its own that we might want to explore, is sudden death and that process, and particularly for those that have lost someone in sudden death, because that's particularly challenging when you're left behind, whether you're the spouse or the child. And I think that might be interesting to look into a little bit further.
I think it's very challenging for those left behind. And I think it is a major shock to the spirit of those who, like the earthquakes right now,
Yeah.
in Turkey and Syria, and the shock of all of a sudden your body's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would like to circle back around, because there was a beautiful image that came to mind when you were talking about the midwife of death coming, and it's interesting, and I would love to hear what our listeners have to say. Perhaps they can share in the comments about this, because those of us that walk this path so easily accept that we have guides around us and we can move through our days with helping spirits, and yet we don't always carry that same image into the afterlife, because I know for myself, I'm still very imprinted with my Catholic upbringing and haven't really spent much time thinking of what now, catching up with my belief system now. Maybe that's a good way of putting that.
Yeah, someone once said to me, it's about updating the files.
I love that.
you
Yeah.
know and sometimes it's really important to take the time to update the files, to really sit with ourselves and look at what are our conscious beliefs, and what are our deeper thoughts and feelings and fears. And I remember one time sitting out in nature, in the green belt, it's called here, right below the foothills, and thinking about my own Catholic upbringing. And I have my own aftermath with all of that. And so I don't have crosses in my house, because I feel like they're symbols of grievous suffering. And so I don't have those to idealize upon in my house. And so I felt, what I did was I just energetically put my hand on my heart and pulled the crosses out of my body and just broke them up as if they were wooden, and gave them to the earth and put them down on the earth. And this might ruffle some feathers, in this conversation, but that was how I was consciously letting go of the vision of suffering, heaven or hell, pain or pleasure, guilt, a lot of guilt in Catholicism. And I was saying no more. This was no longer part of my inner belief system, my deeper inner belief system, and I was letting it go. The positive sides of that, it taught me ritual. It gave me icons in spirit to befriend instead of fear or adore, but to befriend as an equal spirit in my own path. And, we all have big sisters and big brothers and way showers, and it doesn't need for us to feel less than or to feel like we're in an appeasing point of view. We can feel equal to and learning from those beings. And so I call on those beings when I need them in my shamanic work, and especially Michael the Archangel. I mean, that's very Catholic in a sense, but it's also universally seen as a spirit of protection and might. And so I have no problems with any of that. It was just the rigor and the limitation of that core belief that I was dismantling in myself.
Mhm. Thank you for explaining that, Jyoti. I think that feathers are meant to be ruffled, and we should all get curious when our feathers are ruffled, what that means to us, right?
Yes, yes.
You're just sharing your truth, and I love that. Jyoti, is there anything else about this topic that you feel needs to be shared today? I know we'll be continuing on this theme.
Yeah. No, only that in the last um, uh, podcast we did on death, I think it was like 8 months ago, something like that. Um, I related this meditation that I think it was Stephen Levine in his meditation project in prisons. What he I remember reading in one of his books of how you picture yourself on your deathbed, and you just lay there as if this is the end, and you feel into that feeling of what that would feel like to be at the end of your life. And people are whispering outside your bedroom door, should we do this, should we do that, whatever that conversation happens to be. And you're just laying there picturing yourself on your deathbed and thinking of whatever might show up as a regret. Oh, I never did this. I never went to France, or I never went to Hawaii, or I never told so and so I love them and they don't know how I really feel about them, and or how grateful I am to this group of people for what they did or how they held light. Um and you get up. You get up off that deathbed and you go do it. You tie up your loose ends, you finish up your business from this life, and so that when you leave here, you leave clean, you leave with no regrets, no baggage. You lay things to rest as much as you can. And this isn't the plane of perfection. It's not going to be perfect. You may have some loose ends, you may have a ton of them, but you clean up what you can in the moment.
Beautiful. I'll make that notation in the show notes here for our listeners. Great.
Okay.
Thanks for remembering that. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Good. Beautiful. Well, this is part one, folks. Lots to think about. Some really deep topics coming up today, so it may be worth a re-listen. Jyoti, I thank you as always for sharing your wisdom, and today also for sharing so much about your own story. That's really heartwarming for all of us to hear.
Thank you, Lauren.